This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director says that's what should happen.
The FBI director is wrong.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both.
As we've been reporting, President Trump is facing criticism from Democrats and Republicans over comments he made about accepting information on a political opponent from a foreign country. In an interview with ABC News, the president said he would consider listening to information he described as opposition research, and also said he may not report it to the FBI. With me now is Kayleigh McEnany. She is the National Press Secretary for President Trump's 2020 campaign. Kayleigh, thanks so much for being with us. Was what we heard from the president there an expression of his personal feelings or a directive to campaign staff?
Look, we follow his lead. The president is our leader. We follow everything he says, his directives. Our boss, campaign manager Brad Parscale, makes no amends about that, no two ways about that. He says, President Trump is the communications director. He's the political director. He's the leader of our campaign. So we follow and echo what he says.
So what is the campaign actually telling staff about potential scenarios where they might receive offers of damaging information from foreign actors on the president's 2020 challengers?
What we're saying is we're following the president's lead, we're following his directive, and what we're making very clear here is there's a lot of talk about information from foreigners, but there's only one party that's actually done that thus far, and it's the DNC and Hillary Clinton with the Steele dossier and the information a DNC operative got from the Ukrainian government. So it's really ironic to have this discussion when we have notable examples from Democrats.
So to be clear, though, what is the president's directive?
The president's directive, as he said, a case-by-case basis, he said he would likely do both, listen to what they have to say, but also report it to the FBI. That's what he ended in on that soundbite. And his directive right now is look at what the Democrats have done. They're the ones who have done this. And it's notable that there's media outrage and no discussion of the Steele dossier written by a foreign spy, paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and that information being from Russian sources given to a British spy perpetuated through the FBI.
So, but, since the inauguration, the president has talked about America first, and critics might say, well, this would be an instance where the argument could be made, this appears to be Donald J. Trump first and America second. What would you say to that?
I wouldn't say that's the case at all. He said he'd listen to what they have to say, and he would very likely also share it with the FBI. It's very clear. Here's the difference between President Donald Trump and the Democrats. He's honest about it, while the Democrats have cover both from the media and lie about what they've done. We all know what the Steele dossier is. We all know it was from a foreign source. We all know that a DNC operative went to the Ukraine to get information, but there's very little coverage of it.
Let me ask you about polls, because an internal poll conducted by the campaign reportedly found President Trump trailing former Vice President Joe Biden in a number of key states, including several he won in 2016. And I want to play some of what the president said in response to a question about that.
We have great internal polling. They were fake polls that were released by somebody that it's ridiculous. No, we are winning in every single state that we've polled. These are polls that we have that nobody saw. We do very little polling because I'm not a huge believer in polling. I think you go out there and you fight, and you don't really need polls. You need ideas more than polls. But we have some internal polling, very little, and it's unbelievably strong. The strongest I've ever been is exactly today.
So, Kayleigh, have you seen that polling?
I have, and the president is right that our internal polling against a defined Democratic opponent shows him up in all 17 swing states. It's also quite comical because the people who have seen the polling, Brad Parscale, President Trump, people within the campaign, are the horse's mouth, know what that polling says. But instead, we have reporters reporting on other reporter events from alleged leaked documents about what they think our internal polling is, when really President Trump is the only one, along with a handful of others, that actually know.
What is the campaign doing to make sure that the president isn't losing support in those states that he won in 2016?
Well, we are going to have a formidable ground game, and the most important thing is getting out the message, because if you'll notice, I said a defined Democrat opponent. That is where the individuals, the voters, understand where the Democrats stand. They understand where President Trump stands. We win on the issues. So taking substance, this booming economy, the great things President Trump is doing on the border to the American people is the key, and exposing the socialist agenda of Democrats.
Does the president feel Joe Biden is his biggest threat?
No, not at all. President Trump does not fear Joe Biden. I think that was pretty clear. He took a punch back at him yesterday, 2 days ago, after Joe Biden took 76 punches at him in his speech. President Trump fights back against whatever Democrat attacks him, but he does not fear Joe Biden in the slightest.
He does seem to mention him a lot.
He mentions him. He mentions others. He's mentioned Bernie. He's mentioned Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, we're seeing her on the rise, overtaking Bernie and coming up against Joe Biden. So I don't think Joe Biden actually makes it through this primary, but we'll see.
So I want to ask you about recent reporting from the New York Times, which said the president was, quote unquote, detached and uninterested in his campaign. Can you just sort of clarify for us, what is the president's role here in steering his campaign efforts?
He talks with Brad Parscale, our campaign manager, on a regular basis. I've been in the room with the president at a briefing that the campaign was at. I can tell you there is no one who's more engaged, more energized, and more ready for the fight that lies ahead than President Trump. He asked questions of all the various campaign members. He was very motivated for 2020. So that's just fake news.
So I want to ask you as well about the president's campaign kickoff, officially scheduled for next week. He's called it the hottest ticket of any event he's held. Why Florida for this event, and what is it that we can expect to hear from him?
So I think the reason why Florida in particular, of course, it's an important swing state. We all know that. We think it's a Trump state now. We think that the president has it locked down. Still, we have a fight ahead. We know that. We're going to fight. But why Orlando? The venue is a big part of this. It's very difficult to find a venue to hold the massive crowds of people that we expect. The Amway Center is going to hold tens of thousands of people. As the president noted, we already have 74,000 requests for tickets. So this venue, and what is the president's second home state, it was just kind of a no-brainer. We're going to Florida.
Back on the original topic, reaction to the president's remarks, we just had Michael Morell on, and I'm not sure if you heard him. He said that essentially this is an open invitation, it sounds like, from the president to foreign powers to commit espionage against the United States of America. What's your response to that?
It's not an open invitation. The president was merely being honest, and also in doing so exposing the misdeeds of Democrats. So not an open invitation. Even Mitt Romney, who doesn't always agree with the president, disagreed with that notion that it was an open invitation.
So it was not a solicitation for foreign powers to interfere?
Certainly not. President Trump answered a question. He's the most transparent president in history. He answers the questions asked of him. Unprecedented access to the media. You got an honest president.
All right, Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.